y'all. So I was gonna do a Whip Wednesday yesterday and I just wasn't really feeling well. So I decided to do one today instead because I'm working on a lot of things right now. So I guess first, they're all piled up in front of me. I've got this, which is a copperhead tee that I test knit for Lucia Knits, or maybe Lucia Knits, I think Lucia Knits. And I decided that in lieu of making it a tee, I'm going to add bishop sleeves, so I'm in the process of doing that. This I knit out of Fibra Natura cottonwood for the main color, this like lilac kind of color, or like periwinkle, and then the contrast is, I wrote it down, Pandia's Jewels Delight Decay, and I'm pretty sure it's the elderberry color. I'm very interested to see, so my color work is a little bunched right now. Hasn't been blocked at all though. I'm really interested to see this cotton with a wool and color work and see how well it blocks out, because I'm a little nervous that this bunching isn't really going to go away. But it's got this these lovely little trees and stars at the bottom. I am running very low on the contrast color, and I want to put trees right before the cuff, but I don't think I have enough. I was already very close on the ribbing. I actually cut this really short. It's supposed to be I think maybe twice this, but I'm so excited for this to be done, and I'm really excited to have long sleeves on it. And this pattern is a lot. It's really kind of arduous color work, but I mean, it's really beautiful. And the pattern is, yeah, just really lovely. I loved testing it, even though it's not technically finished yet. I'm also working on a sweater for my partner right now. So this is most of the body of a raglan. This pattern is from Ready Set Raglan by Pom Pom Quarterly. Well, it's by Pom Pom put it out. I can't remember the author right now, but the sleeves are on hold, and I think we're gonna do maybe a partial turtleneck on it, but I have to add a bit more length. And then this is actually knit with 2 strands of Knit Picks palette. And so I have a brown, which I want to say is Bittersweet Heather, and then Larch Heather, which is a green. And so it's mixing together to make this. They wanted a sweater for spending time in the woods and for hunting and stuff. So that's what this is. And it's a garter rib, which I have to admit has been very slow going to knit just because it's a rib. But the texture of it is really nice, and knitting with palette is always just really nice and woolly. So that is a big one. Been working on that I think since before we moved, so maybe late August. But it's getting there. And then I'm also working on one more sweater, which I just put this on a bigger needle and even an extended needle so I can start to try it on. But this is an Urstina by Jackie Seaslook. And so I just joined the front very recently. There's only a little bit going there. These needles are tapping everywhere. And I just have to do some more rows before I can split the sleeves off. But I really love the construction on this. I'm kind of getting tired of top-down sweaters, not gonna lie, but I think I just need to be knitting other things. But I really love this half brioche stitch faux seams that are going. I haven't really knit brioche before, and this is barely brioche, but it feels kind of a nice introduction to it. And yeah, they're just really, I love anything with slip stitches. So Yeah, and I'm like loving this color. This yarn is BC Garn Samia. It is 100% organic non-superwash wool, and I'm just like really loving how much squish it has, and something about the way that it is plied is just giving it this really kind of like, it doesn't have a lot of stitch definition. It's kind of like a more like, I guess what you call like a rustic texture. It's just really nice. I've really been liking this yarn, and this is not necessarily like the yarn that started my like non-superwash love, but it is certainly helping. So yeah, that's it for sweaters. It's far too many things. Oh, speaking of which, this is also Jackie Sleeslick, the Bessie crop that she released fairly recently. I test knit for that, and I've really been enjoying wearing my summer knits, like tank tops and tees and stuff, over long sleeves and turtlenecks, because we're getting into that cooler fall weather, and I don't want to put these tops away, but it is too cold to wear them on their own. I'm also making I'm making a Best Beret by James and Watts. And I'm loving this pattern. If like the way that the increases and decreases are done is really evenly spaced out, so you get this like really, really nice shaping. I'm kind of breaking the rules a little. I'm modding this pattern slightly. So this is what it's looking like right now. I'm really happy with this yarn I'm using. It's a Cascade 220 something. It's not self-striping exactly. It is, kind of, but they're not very narrow stripes. But basically I've gotten this cool kind of fade that's going up into what is ultimately going to be, I think it's like pink and purple and blue. And it'll be that red at the top. And then the way that this is, you're supposed to start with an I-cord and pick up stitches and do the edge. I'm making this as a gift for someone, and I don't know how big their head is. So I skipped the I-cord and just cast on at the edge, and my plan is to pick up stitches from the edge of this and then do an I-cord so that it will fit their head properly once it's like all finished otherwise. And I think, so there's two like top knot options. There's like a single, I'm trying to remember what they call it. I think of them as like antenna. There's like a single antenna or like a double antenna option for the top, and then you can make like a regular kind of silhouette beret or like a wider one. My gauge, I think this gauge is like kind of tight for a worsted, so I've been struggling a bit. I think it's going to be kind of halfway between those sizes, but it's getting to the point where I have short tips on, but I'm going to have to switch to double pointed needles soon. But yeah, I'm like so excited to see this make its way up to the top. And I also have some hand spun that I finished recently, that I might do a Mystic Square, which is also James and Watts, because it seems like a really fun construction. You like start with a rectangle and then you pick up and it turns into a top, so that's cool. The last knit that I have going right now is this ephemeris shawl, which, oh gosh, I cannot remember who does this pattern, but it was in Pom Pom Winter 2019 maybe. But I had put a poll up in my stories for colors on this, and I decided to use, this is Malabrigo sock in Mart and Aguas, and this Aguas has been through it. This has been 2, maybe 3 different things before. I am a really aggressive frogger, and so it was a top. I got rid of it. It was part of a sweater for like a couple of years, I think, and then I unraveled that sweater. So it is a little kind of like, it also was washed quite a lot in its other forms, so it has like a very different texture from this, which has never been anything but yarn. So it's interesting to kind of get this mixture of like down here where this is knit up by itself. It feels very like kind of like crunchy and like a little pilled. It's weird because it almost feels like a non-superwash because it's just been washed so many times. Whereas this feels like way more, I guess just like it feels softer. But I'm really loving the way that these colors are coming together. This pattern is super satisfying as well. I know I said I love slip stitches, and this is what is happening here. And so I think I have to continue. These lines kind of go back up again, and then I think it turns into a slightly different slip stitch pattern. And then eventually the colors reverse, and then this will spend some time on its own at the end of the shawl. It's a really interesting pattern. I didn't realize how little yardage it uses, so that's cool. But yeah, that's kind of it for my knits right now. I have probably at least, well, so I have 2 skeins of handspun, my first 2 skeins of handspun. I'm very proud of them. This one, which I'd posted about before, which is, now that these guys have both been washed, they've plumped up quite a bit. I actually don't even know what weight this is anymore, but I have about 140 yards. And then this one is my more recent one. These guys were kind of sister colorways to each other. And so this one is like a bit darker and more muted. I don't have any idea what the fiber is because I've had it for like a decade. It's just been sitting in storage because I didn't know how to spin. But I'm so proud of this. And the texture, like, if you had to put these side by side, this is so much more, they look like they're the same color in this light, but this is so much more consistent, and it's about, I think, 240 yards. And I'm just like obsessed with it, and I don't know what to do with it. So if anyone has suggestions, maybe. So I think this one's gonna be a Mystic Square, and I'm trying to come up with a contrast color that would look nice with it, because I don't have enough to do like the whole top. But I love the idea of like a rectangle of handspun that's just like framed by, it's like you get to wear this like, I don't know, like picture of your spinning on you. And I'm really stuck on what to spin next because I have, all of my fibers are very precious to me, and I don't know what to do next. I also really want to try, I love 2-ply. I've always loved marled yarns, and I love the effect that 2-ply has, but I'm trying to figure out just what would be, I don't know, maybe I should learn how to chain ply or do a fractal spin, or I don't know. I've had these books out from the library about color and about spinning, and it makes me feel so much pressure to like do the right thing, or like to really just like make the most of the fibers that I have. I realized I did like a breakdown of my expenses for the last year, and really the only thing I spend money on for myself is like yarn and fiber, like crafting and books. And so I try to really invest a lot of time and love into my fiber crafts because, you know, it's kind of one of the few things I really spend money on, and so it feels like there's so many decisions to make, and so it I have a couple of things. If anyone has input on what maybe to try as a new spinner next, I have a braid of Corriedale, two braids of Polworth, and I think a separate braid of Polworth. I have a pound of Navajo churro fiber. I think I'm saying that correctly. And I have 2 ounces of linen. I think that's it. I'm also headed to Rhinebeck in a couple of weeks, and I'm thinking about buying a fleece. I'm looking at Gotland fiber. Anyway, if any spinners are watching and have any advice in that department, I would greatly appreciate it. And the other thing that I'm working on right now, which is very tiny, is I'm making more pride bracelets. I'm working on a trans one right now. And that kind of brings me to talk about shop things. So I have an Etsy shop, kind of. I've been trying to do this for so long, where I've been trying to do a shop. Because people who ever see me knitting, it seems, ask me if I sell my work or tell me to sell my work. And I've tried and hated it. I've tried again and not done very well at it. I've realized, well, and I should say, headed into this fall, which I also spent moving and starting a job, I was planning on, like, doing it for real, you know? Like, oh, I'm gonna get, like, the eco packaging, and I'm gonna do all this stuff for real, and, like, really... And then I started working immediately, and it's just been really hard, and I realized a couple of things. One being that I'm disabled. I knew that, but working has really intensified a lot of my pain. I'm in pain every day of my life, and that is just how it is. And there are better days and there are worse days, but I don't know if I can remember the last day that I wasn't in pain of some kind. And so that makes it really hard to be consistent with things, to be on a schedule, a routine of any kind, because sometimes it just hurts too much to do things, or there's just not enough spoons in a day, or it's just too much. And so I found that really, it's tricky, because on one hand, being able to, like, be, I don't know, self-employed or whatever, to be doing my own, and my partner is a freelancer, and so I have been able to kind of see some of the flexibilities that gives them. I really want that, but it also does require a certain amount of consistency from me that I don't know if I can do, both because of my pain and because I'm neurodivergent. I struggle a lot with executive dysfunction, and so doing things consistently is really difficult. It's just really hard. And, you know, we're experiencing climate collapse and empire collapse and a global pandemic, so that's also making things harder for everyone. And so I still want to do a shop. I'm still making these. I've also realized that things take me a lot longer to make than I acknowledged, and that the way I have valued my work over the years has been so much less than what it is actually worth, so much less than what my time and abilities are worth. And it's a horrible balance of trying to ask for what is a fair price for my work, my experience, materials even, and what I think a person would reasonably pay for something. And so there are some things that I think, and also just like sometimes I start making things and I get bored. I don't want to make, I'm trying really to pivot to making things only that I want to make anyway, and if someone wants to buy them, then that's great. Which I think is a healthier relationship. And I think particularly when it comes to knitting, you know, of course it feels like such a dream and such a wonderful thing to be able to knit, do this thing that I love and I'm going to do anyway, and to also make money to survive. But when it comes down to it, knitting is slow. It's so slow. It's one of the slowest when it comes to handcrafts, and near impossible to actually price out. And I think by, you know, doing any kind of craft for sale and underpricing it hurts other crafters, especially knitters. Our work is already so devalued, in large part because of things like fast fashion. And to me, it is not worth it to my community and not worth it to me to underprice my work. So I've decided I've made a couple of sprigs for the shop. I got very tired of knitting them very quickly. I have 2 of them. There's a green one, and there's a purple one. And these are the only ones I'm going to make, and that I'm not making. And those are the only ones that are being sold. I also made, for anyone who is interested, because the sprig pattern is also in the shop, there is a variation. There are a lot of variations that I've listed in the pattern. And one of them is to knit a shawl size, and another variation is to knit a fingering weight size, and so I've done both. And so I knit a fingering weight shawlette, shall we say, size, which fits kind of like this. It actually fits kind of more like an actual kerchief. This is one skein of a yarn called Ink and Spice. I don't know how I feel about that name, but it is a really lovely like fiber blend. I'm trying to remember who makes it, but I'm not sure. But it's only about 200 and so yards of fingering weight, made like a really decently sized shawlette. So that's what I made. And because I knit all 3 of these like at the same time, I got really bored. I also realized they take me way longer to make than what I was going to sell them for. Which is all to say that I'm not selling knitting. And I won't be. And the only exchange that I will be willing to do moving forward is like a solidarity economy type exchange, where if you were a farmer who had a CSA, you know, we could exchange like a CSA share for a sweater or whatever seems an even exchange. And, you know, or, you know, knitting something in exchange for medicine, you know, herbal medicine, or artwork for artwork, or anything like that, in part because I think that is really the only way to value it properly. And also because, like, solidarity economies are really cool and interesting, and I think a really great way to combat, like, capitalist bullshit, which is what got us into this mess in the first place. So that's kind of the policy for knitwear moving forward. I will knit for exchange, or I will knit as gifts, or for myself and my loved ones. And things like this are going to be priced in a way that is more appropriate for how long it takes me to do them. I can make a bracelet in about an hour and a half if that's all I'm working on, and if my pain is at a reasonable level. Which means that $10, which is what I typically had been charging for them, is not going to be $10 anymore. Which I think is perfectly reasonable. And it's hard on one hand for me to, because it may mean that no one ever buys them. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop making them, but and I don't charge extra for custom colors if I have a flag that you, or if I don't have a flag that you want, just let me know, and I'll do any flag you want. And the price will be the same. Because I want to offer as many flags as possible. I'm also experimenting with, normally I do 6 colors, or 3. I'm gonna try and do a Progress Pride flag, so it'll be like red through purple, brown, black, trans colors. It'll be really wide. I don't know how I'm gonna price those yet, but I want to do them. I think it would be cool. I'm hoping to do maybe some embroidered works. We'll see how long it takes. Basically like pronoun embroidery stuff. And I'm hoping to do some prints and more jewelry. Because those are the things that I want to make. And I also am hoping to do, one thing I realized about my relationship with the way that I like post things on social media is that I'm very averse to doing progress shots. I'm trying to be better about that by kind of showing all of the in progress things, but I've realized that that is also kind of a product of this like very finished object oriented way of thinking that I have and have had for a long time. Where I've always been terrible about being a process knitter. I've always been very focused on finished products. And I think that's just a cultural thing with the way that we think about craft and the way that we want things kind of on demand. And so I'm trying to be better about that. I'm trying to also do more projects where the process of it is really enjoyable. You know, and even if it takes forever, at least I will have enjoyed the forever. Instead of just like slogging through stockinette for ages and ages, or whatever stitch that I don't really like. I mean, stockinette's fine. I can do it and watch anime. It's fine. But yeah, I really want to be doing more progress photos. And I also am trying to get closer to the process just in the fact that I've started spinning, and it has been my dream forever to do a fleece from fleece to sweater or fleece to whatever project and do all the steps myself. And I've always really loved color, and I've become very interested in natural dyeing. I'm very grateful to have access to forage for supplies for that. And I'm just, I have bare yarn. I'm going to do some experimenting. There is a possibility that I will do yarn and I will sell yarn at a point. Or I won't. We'll have to see. And what I was also going to say is I've talked to a couple of people in my community about basically what it is to be trans and a person who makes clothes, or who knits or who sews clothes, and how difficult it is to have I don't know, it's amazing to be a trans person and to be able to so carefully craft and customize clothes for myself. And it's also really frustrating how many pattern writers, designers do not take trans bodies into consideration. Or even who list a pattern as unisex when it is clearly shaped for a given kind of body. And I'm really trying to just like cultivate more, I don't know, a much closer knit a community of trans like makers. And I'm really interested in kind of like working to make it easier for us to make things for ourselves. Because it's also just hard to figure out, and this is kind of a tangent, but just like, I loved that I could be making clothes for what I was calling my post-op wardrobe after top surgery, that I would have things that I'd knit that I would fit my new body. And I didn't make as many things as I'd hoped to. But it's really interesting, I think, how much I don't want to wear things that I thought I would want to wear. That clothes that I used to love, I don't anymore. That there are styles that I'm interested in now that I never really considered for myself because they would just be too dysphoric. And so my relationship with clothes is also, I think, like much more personal than it used to be, than I expected it to be. And so And so I think that it, like, I don't know, I think of ways that we can give clothes that we've outgrown or that have outgrown us to others, that we can make, that, like, body inclusivity is size inclusive, of course, but is also, like, really more expansive towards, like, bodies of all different, like, configurations and experiences. And, like, I think that also requires, like, a slowing down and, like, a really careful kind of contemplation. And I don't want to just, like, prattle on about things. This is already a half hour long. But I'm really interested in people who are also interested in this and who want to talk more about just, like, how can we bring this kind of, like, customized intentionality and, like, this, like, very explicit kind of, like, transness into knitting, into designing, into, like, the world of craft. Because I swear, if I get misgendered in a yarn shop again, I might lose it. It is such, and I'm grateful for the way in which many women can find community and a lot of comfort in the knitting community, in fiber community. But it is also incredibly maddening how much it is considered the default that you are a woman if you are a knitter. And yeah, that's, like, a rant for another time. But yeah, if you're a trans crafter, knitter person, and you want to talk more about this, I think it would be really exciting to be forging just, like, a more expansive future in the craft, and just really bonding with each other. And yeah,